cousin Nancy is married to her then husband, Simon Wolf. And he said, have you ever read this book by Ian Fleming? I said, no. He said, make a great movie.
David Picker agrees that Agent 007 has all the right ingredients.
I actually had a conversation at lunch one day with Lew Wasserman, who at the time was representing Alfred Hitchcock. And I said to Lew, I got a great idea for Mr. Hitchcock, James Bond. He says, oh, well, we represent Mr. Bond through our London office. He said, you can't get the rights.
Meanwhile, Cubby Broccoli splits with his longtime associate Irving Allen and begins searching for new projects.
Cubby hired Wolf Mankiewicz to do a script, which I think was based on the Arabian Nights. And it wasn't going very well, and Cubby decided that he wouldn't go through with it. He wasn't going to do it. So Wolf said, well, what is it you really want to do, Cubby? And he said, you know what I want to do. I want to do the James Bond books. He said, well, I know the fellow who has the option. Would you like me to bring him in?
A meeting is scheduled for the next morning. And for Harry Saltzman, the meeting could not come quickly enough.
It was a real ticking clock. He was very, very worried. He always told me that he had this option. It was running out. He had no deal for distribution, no deal for production, didn't have the money.
At first, Cubby wants to buy Harry Saltzman's option, but Saltzman has other ideas.
Harry didn't want to sell the option. He wanted to become a partner. So that's how that partnership started.
Bud Ornstein ran our London office, and he called and said that Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli wanted to come to New York and meet with us about something.
They met with Arthur Krim, Bob Benjamin, and David Picker. And David had known the books, and he was very excited about the project.
The two of them came in the office and said, we have the rights to James Bond. And I was sitting back in my chair like this, and they came forward like that.
The entire thing only took an hour.
They never left that office until we had a deal.
And they shook hands, and the deal was done.
In those years, when you made a deal with somebody, you would finance a movie, distribute the movie, pay the bank losses, pay the profits if there were any, without a signed piece of paper. At least at United Artists you would, because our word was all that was required.
They were giants in their industry.
Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli understood the Bond books. They understood the kind of films we hoped that they would make, and they made them.
Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman form two companies. First, they create a Swiss corporation which will actually hold the film rights.
Well, my first name is Dana, D-A-N-A, and Harry's wife's first name was Jackie, J-A-Q-U-I.
Eon Productions will actually produce the films. For many years, some speculate that the name stands for everything or nothing.
Cubby was always, when I said to him, does it mean everything or nothing, he'd say, never heard of that.
The easiest one to do from the point of view of style and below-the-line content was Dr. No. And that's why I pushed for it.
I have to say, I do admire, especially David Picker. David Picker, United Artists, was the man who pushed this picture through.
Broccoli and Saltzman asked the man who brought them together, Wolf Mankiewicz, to work with Richard Maibaum on the treatment for Dr. No.
I know that the script was not up to requirements.
Broccoli and Saltzman insist that the script adhere more closely to Ian Fleming's novel. Eventually, Wolf Mankiewicz drops out of the project and, fearing the film will be a disaster, asks to have his name removed from the script. In hiring a director, Broccoli and Saltzman limit their choices to British filmmakers who have a strong sense of personal style. The job is offered to Guy Green, Guy Hamilton, and Ken Hughes. All turn the job down. Finally, they hire director Terence Young. It proves to be an inspired choice.
Cubby knew that he would bring a lot of style to the film, which he did.
I mean, Terence was a director that set the sort of style of it.
Terence was a filmmaker. He had a good eye.
And he saw himself as James Bond.
Terence Young was James Bond. He was the glamour.
Terence Young works closely with the producers, and with Richard Maibaum he makes a key stylistic decision. He will take the elegance, wit, and sophistication of Ian Fleming's writing and infuse the character of James Bond with those qualities.
You know, every director puts his stamp on a film. Every director, some of his personality, if sometimes not all of his personality, comes off in a film.
His main influence was creating the Bond character.
The search begins for an actor to play the role of James Bond.
They looked at a lot of actors.
Terence wanted Richard Johnson to play the part. Well, there were a lot of people considered, including Cary Grant, who was our best man at our wedding. But Cubby knew that if he asked Cary to do it, it would be a one-film deal, and then he'd have to start all over again, searching for Bond.
We originally planned to use Roger Moore when we made Dr. No, but he wasn't available. He was working on television.
I was working on a film called On the Fiddle. The producer of that was a very fine man, Ben Fish. And Ben Fish was a friend of Harry Saltzman. And it was Ben Fish who suggested that maybe Sean would make a good James Bond.
On the other side of the globe, Cubby Broccoli remembers Connery from an introduction made by Lana Turner. He asked to see Connery's latest film.
One afternoon in California, he called me from Goldwyn Studios, and he said, "I'd like you to come down right away. I want you to see an actor." And the film was Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and the actor was Sean Connery. So at the end of it, he said, "What do you think of him?" And I said, "I think he's fantastic."
Some at United Artists are unconvinced at first. The producers meet Connery in London and become more certain of their choice.
I like the way he moved, and the fact that he had a lot of acting experience. But he moves extremely well.
United Artists is finally convinced to go with an unknown. It is a decision they will not regret.
I think I might have heard the expression, he was the richest man in the poorhouse at the time. The best choice of a group that nobody was jumping up and down about, but he seemed just fine. He looked great.
Immediately, Terence Young and Connery work on creating the appropriate style for James